my prior experience with Lysistrata was a citywide movement, like this Lysistrata project or whatever that was going on in the 90s. And I walked into a room, and the man who put himself in charge looked at me and said, "I guess you're the costumer." To which I said, "No." And I'd already been directing for so long, but I was never going to be seen as a director. I'm letting that go. It's gone. It's gone. Amy and I rehearsed in the studio today. We had just a ton of fun. It's so cool to create. I found myself saying, the world hates women, this culture hates women. And as everything's coming out about sex trafficking of young girls and stuff like that, it's hard to look at it, because it's so unpleasant. And if anything like that ever happens to you, you just want to get to the other side so you don't have to have it happening to you all the time in this trauma loop. So it's tricky. But then today I remembered Lysistration, which was my rock opera, and my husband, he wrote the music, our take on Lysistrata. And I think we staged that for maybe the second Capitol Fringe. I kind of turned everything on its head, and anyway, I had this rap group of senior citizens called the Hermes Choppers. And it was a story I found out that happened in ancient Greece, where one night, which happened to coincide with a festival for women only, where, there was a lot of drinking and whatever going on. The next day, every statue of Hermes had been castrated. They knocked all of the penises off, except no one could figure out who had done it, because none of the men ever thought women would be that smart or strong or whatever. Anyway, I found that hilarious, and so I wrote this rap called My Old Dirty Bastard. It was really fun. And then I really started thinking about my research on that project and what I had learned, which was in, I think, Athens, probably not Sparta, but anyway, ancient Greece, however you want to frame that. There were three things women could be. There were three ways women could exist. One was as a prostitute, which, we get that in Oedipus, not that he was a prostitute, but babies left in the woods, to die and then scooped up by their madam, and then they're raised and given a home, and all they have to do in exchange is be a prostitute. And so good for, no. Anyway, I'm being sarcastic. So, and then the other way, the traditional way, was wife. A woman could be a wife. And so this was interesting to me in terms of structure and layout and a blueprint, because the men had these parlors, whatever you want to call them, right? Anyway, the man's study room was directly connected to outside to the street. So there was a door that walks straight from the street into this room and straight back out again. So the men's lounge, whatever you want to call it, I don't know what the name was. But the wives had an anteroom. And this room was so embedded in the internal structure of the home that it had no doors to the outside. And there was one tiny room that sort of was the bridge between the men's room and the women's room, and there was one sort of settee couch-like thing in there, and that was used for procreation. So whenever it was time for the wife to get pregnant, that's where it happened. And then she went back into her anteroom and spun and raised children, and that was their life. And then there was a third way, and I thought this was really interesting. And the third way was the Hetairi. And the Hetairi were sort of courtesans, and they wore amazing clothes. They were very highly educated, and they kept the arts alive. So they would go into the men's room, study, parlor, and they would play flute, or they would recite, a playwright or a poet. And sort of they kept the craft of the arts alive, these Hetairi did. And so I've been thinking about that all day, and just thinking that this is sort of still the role of women. When I look at the traditional expectations of woman. You're either a throwaway, like, you know, according to MAGA, like you're a throwaway sexual piece of trash, or you're a wife and you need to be quiet, or you're, you know, the important lover that you're allowed to have. And I thought, God, that's a long time to have really nothing change. That's my insight today. And so anyway, I guess the FusterCluck about that, or the light I want to bring to that, is that we can change this, and that women can actually be whole people, whole human beings. And I hope that you will celebrate yourself if you're a woman, or, you know, I just hope you will celebrate yourself no matter who you are. But especially, I guess I'm speaking to women, just to say this conditioning goes back centuries. So you're up against it. If you ever feel like, jeez, I'm up against it, like you really are up against it. And I think just keep showing up. And, you know, of those three roles, you know, you're just actually a whole person who can't be, who shouldn't be able to be whittled down into whatever this thing is. And anyway, have a great day. Night. It's late. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.